With that down and out of the way, let's go on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Greg Murdock, who writes, I'm a new listener, and I am so happy you are helping us through this difficult time. Thanks so much, Greg. It's great for us too. Believe me and Rob talk about how just doing the show is great for us during this time, helping keeping us sane too. My question is, if you think that the effect of the COVID-19 will create a permanent scar on all of pop culture events, for example, going to the Comic-Cons or a premiere of a blockbuster movie will never be the same because people will be nervous about being so close to each other. Comic-Cons can become very crowded. All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And listen, you're not wrong. Comic-Cons become very, very crowded. As a matter of fact, it has just become an accepted part of Comic-Con that when you go, and I'm not joking here, this is 100% serious, no hyperbole, not being facetious in the least. I remember, talking to friends of mine at other organizations and at whatever organizations I would be running at the time, whatever, when we would talk about things like Comic-Con, or we would talk about things like New York Comic-Con or whatever, one of the things that would come up in scheduling is, okay, so we've got Comic-Con from this to this, and then from the end of Comic-Con for about a week, we're probably going to be out a couple of people who are going to be sick. Honestly, because there became a phrase that became very well known, con crud. You've all heard of con crud. Everybody gets con crud because you're at these conventions and you're standing shoulder to shoulder, people crammed in lines for hours at a time. It is just something a lot of people just assume that when they go to Comic-Con, they're going to get sick for a bit because that's kind of what happens. So I don't think this is a new thing. I don't think this is a new thing. So it's something that people who go to these sorts of things are already aware of. I mean, this isn't anything new. We know you can get sick if you can go to things. This is nothing new. It is an interesting question about once this whole thing gets behind us, how are people going to react and respond to a new world in which we've had the coronavirus? Personally, I think we as a culture are pretty resilient. And I think what you're going to see, and it's difficult to compare what's happening right now to other, let's say, paradigm shifting events, right? Other paradigm shifting events. There's no true comparison. But when you look back through our history at paradigm shifting events like, say, 9/11 or other paradigm shifting kinds of events, it is understandable that while we're in the midst of those things, we will say to ourselves, things are never going to be the same again. But what happens is eventually the resiliency of our culture starts to shine through. Things did get back to normal. Yes, there are some things that changed, but for the most part, things got back to normal. And I believe the same is true of this. It might make us more aware of certain things. It might make us a little bit more precautious. Maybe it'll make us a little more cautious to the degree we should have already been a little bit cautious. Like, I remember watching videos going into Comic-Con, people saying, guys, please bring hand sanitizer with you. Please change your fucking clothes from day 1 to day 4. Please take a shower before you go to the con, because we've all been in line at a Comic-Con where clearly this dude has not showered since he got to San Diego. And maybe something like this might be really good for kids, but I do see us getting back to normal. And I honestly think that once this is behind us, however long it takes to get behind us, I think with the exception of those little behavioral changes, making sure we as people wash our hands, which we should have been doing anyway, making sure that when we're going to big events, we carry some hand sanitizer, which we should have been doing anyway, making sure we have clean clothes, which we should have been doing anyway. Aside from that, Rob, I actually think once this is behind us, however long that takes, I believe I see us getting back to normal. So yeah, maybe not this Comic-Con, because even if everything gets behind us fairly quickly, I think a lot of people would have already not made plans to travel and all that kind of stuff. I think it's definitely going to have an effect on this year's Comic-Con. Very little doubt about that. How big or small of an impact, I'm not sure, but there will definitely be an impact there. But long term, I see us doing what we have always done. we become resilient, we make minor adjustments to how we operate as we should, and then we move forward. And I think that's what'll happen. But Rob, maybe I'm being admittedly, maybe I'm being over a little simplistic about this. How do you see things shaking out once we get this behind us?
Well, I think you're right. Look, humanity has been very resilient. I mean, hell, we survived the Black Death. We survived World War II. We've survived all manner of atrocities. Everybody's done something bad to everybody if you go back far enough in history, and we keep going. And these are inevitability. These things are inevitable as we encroach upon natural habitats, as the developed world encroaches on the natural world. This is going to happen again. It's happened before. We've seen emergent pathogens rage across the planet before, and we learn and we move forward. And life is finite, John, and there's no reason that we should spend our lives cowering in fear or terror from things like this, because we are resilient, and that's what evolution is. And what it does teach us, hopefully, is to be a little bit smarter and a little bit more aware. And that's what we should take from all of these events, and we get to move forward. And Comic-Con will come back. I mean, I don't want to live in a world. Look, I'm not in any hurry to not live responsibly, but I also don't want to live in a world where I can't go to a Comic-Con. I won't go to a Comic-Con, obviously, now at this moment. But if cases plateau and they begin to drop, as we've seen in China and South Korea, we will get back to normal. And we will be a little smarter, and we will be a little bit more self-aware and aware of our fellow citizens. And we will be able to return to the theaters and return to Comic-Con and return to the lives that are rich, that are enjoyable. And for the time being, I would say that, look at this time. If you're sequestered away, spend some time with family. Call people on the phone you haven't talked to in a while. Maybe an old friend you haven't seen. Call them up for no reason at all and just say, hey, man, I was thinking about the time we did such and such. People love to hear from other people. And right now is a time we shouldn't look at it as some kind of a setback or a hindrance. I mean, I understand for me, our incomes might be curtailed, and that's a bummer. But I would say use this time and reflect or reach out or do whatever, and we will be back. And again, I keep thinking about Tina Turner and Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. We will rebuild, and after Bartertown gets wrecked. And I mean, that's what I think about movie characters giving me the inspiration to move forward.
And you know what? I decided to make that. I thought this was a really interesting question, so I decided to make that the topic of today's question of the day. I wanted to ask you guys, how do you think we're going to get back to normal here? And at what pace? So I asked you guys, if the crisis is behind us by July, do you think most people will still avoid movies and events like Comic-Con, or will they be anxious to get back to normal and attend those events? And right now, 19.8% of you are saying people are still going to avoid those events. People are going to avoid Comic-Con. They're going to avoid movies, stuff like that. 29.7% of you are saying we're instantly going to go back out and we're going to right back to it. And about 50% of you guys are saying it'll be 50-50. There's going to be probably a lot will go to things, but they may not go to as many things at first. And I think that's probably a pretty balanced response to that. So almost 4,000 of you guys have voted on that. Again, 19.8% of you are saying people are going to avoid everything, even in July, if everything's behind us. Almost 30% of you saying, nope, everybody's going to return. And about 50% of you saying, it'll be about 50-50. They'll go to some things. They may not go to a lot of other things. Question is, guys, what do you think is going to be the response if something like this is, say, behind us come July, which we don't know that it will be at this point. But jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right.